Hello, I'm Helena Wandin, speech-language therapist at the National Center for Rett Syndrome and Related Disorders. And I'm also an associated researcher at Uppsala University. I would like to thank the organizing group for the opportunity to present on this busy event. And Dr. Jill Townend has provided an overview of research on communication in Rett syndrome. And I will continue with a narrower scope and talk about well-being and emotional competence and how they relate to communication and AAC. And I chose this subject because I think this is an important subject for people with Rett syndrome and their families. And there is very, very little research in this area. So this is an attempt to encourage conversations among families and researchers and encourage research on this subject. So this is the first key message. Psychological well-being needs to be addressed. As Dr. Santosh already has talked about, anxiety and low mood is an issue in Rett syndrome. And Buchanan and colleagues found that 77% of the participants were reported to show or had shown anxiety or anxiety-like behavior, so it's common. And Biscard and colleagues found that 38% of adult women had been or were treated by antidepressant or antipsychotic medication. So it is an issue that we need to address. And to support psychological well-being, different approaches can be taken. And pharmacological treatment is one. Behavior activation is another. And this means that the individual has access to activities that are meaningful to the individual, and that the individual also feels that he or she are in control during the activity. And a third approach is to support emotional competence, which is what this presentation is about. And the second key message is that emotional competence develops through interaction and experiences, as many other things. And emotional competence is to be aware of one's own and others' emotional state, and also to know the label of emotions, the names of emotions, for example, sad, proud, nervous. Emotional competence also involves being able to talk about emotions and the reasons behind the emotions and how to manage them. What can I do? What do I need? And it also includes to be aware that other people can have other emotional experiences than oneself. And the researchers you can see below on the slide belongs to two research groups that are currently evaluating and developing intervention to support emotional competence. A third key message is that most effective learning takes place when the individual is in a calm state. So it's important to find and creative opportunities where the individual is not agitated, because talking about emotions when someone is agitated may not facilitate learning. So suggested activities may be when reading books, watching videos, family dinner conversations, etc. And Na and colleagues developed a systematic interview, early development of emotional competence, an interview that can be used when planning interventions. And the interview includes questions about temperament and behaviors, the individual's reactions and how they express emotions, and whether and how they recognize emotions in others, and also how communication partners respond to the individual's emotional expressions, but also their input, how and what they talk about and regarding emotional competence or emotions. And the other research group, Rangel Rodriguez and colleagues, they developed a profile, early development of emotional competence profile. And it's a template for collecting information and presenting the information from the interview. And in the template, there's a section about me, about the individual, how they communicate, what emotions they express and how, and what their communication partners talk about and how they do it, and also goals and strategies to develop emotional competence. And Na and colleagues developed strategies for talking about emotions as partners. And it's a program to encourage communication partners to talk about emotions. And they encourage support partners to provide and model labels for a variety of emotions and to validate, that is to accept and discuss emotions, and also communicate about the research and appropriate responses to emotions. And both research groups have evaluated this program. And both groups have evaluated using steps while reading books, while in shared book reading. And to the right of the slide, you can see an overview. So they encourage partners to talk about the label to emotions, the reasons to emotions, and the solution. And while doing this, they also have this chain of strategies to ask or comment and model in the individuals or a copy of the individual system, communication system, to model the emotions, and then provide wait time, and then respond to the individual's signals, either if the individuals say something themselves, express something, or they respond by providing their own suggestions. And both parents and children talked more about emotions after the intervention. I would like to really encourage anyone that is interested to read these articles, because they are very practical, concrete examples of how to support emotional competence. And I would like to finish with this case study by Bhattacharya and colleagues, because it describes very nicely how a young girl with Rett syndrome used her emotional competence and her AAC system to talk about emotions and advocate for herself. Before the regression, she had 80 spoken words, and she received her eye gaze device by the age of 3, and then it was used daily. And the case study presents data from her communication software and caregiver diaries. And she was able to take active part in medical examinations, describe symptoms, and ask for information. And this is a really good summary of what emotional competence can do in everyday life. And with this, I would like to say thank you for listening.